handler utility. So in the first video we have understood how we can create a custom exception handler for checked and unchecked exceptions. Now in this same repository I have created version 2.0.0. Here we are going to create standard exceptions. So I have already cloned this service. I'll go there. So let me expand the project. uh, so first I'll explain you how the exceptions I have created. Okay, so there is a generic exception here. This generic exception, the same way we have the custom exception, right? In the first video we are able to provide http status and error messages in the exception, and similarly this is here. Now this is getting extended to response status exception. In the response status exception, if I go to the super, they are taking the http status and reason and setting over here. So this is a default one. Okay, now this generic exception has two types of generic exception I have created. There are two types of generic exception I have created. One is the custom exception, which we already have the same way. We will get the http status and error messages, and using the super, this generic exception will be called, and the http status will be stored in this generic exception, http status and error messages. Another second type of generic exception is standard exception. So this standard exception has multiple childs. So there are, so this is the types of standard exception. Let me expand it. So standard exceptions are the exceptions which are already standardized. Bad request, bad gateway, data not found, service unavailable. So here you are not allowed to send the http status. Only error messages are allowed to send. http status is for each type of standard exceptions are implicitly already we have given. The user do not need to provide it. Okay, so for bad gateway it is bad gateway. For bad request, if you see the bad request we have provided, service unavailable will be like 500. Okay, let me reiterate for you to get a clarity. So first is we have generic exception. The same way we can provide http status and error messages. Now this generic exception has two child. One is custom exception, another is standard exception. Custom exception is same, like you can provide http status and error messages, and this in the custom exception, whatever http status and error messages you have provided, it will make a call to generic exception, to make a call to its parent, and then the initialization will happen. Similarly, there you have a second type of generic exception, another child of generic exception, which is standard exception. Standard exception has four type of child. You can make many more. Here you are not allowed to send http status. You can send the error messages. http status we have provided. Now this standard exception will now this bad gateway exception will make a call to standard exception. Standard exception will take this http status and error messages, and it will again make a super call to generic exception. So generic exception has two types, custom and standard exception, and standard exception has four types, that is bad gateway, bad request, data not found, service unavailable exception. So this is how we have designed exception to make it more and more robust. Now we'll go to the handler. So we have created this handler for generic exception. So the benefit of creating this hierarchical way is I have to only create the handler for generic exception. If I would have created individual exceptions, like for bad gateway different one, bad request, then I have to create multiple handlers for it. So if I'll go to here this generic exception handler, I'm going and this generic exception has all the data like http status and error messages, the same way which we did in part 1, and all the other things like method call and URI we are able to get it from the servlet web request, and we are creating the status body, that's all. Okay, I'll go to the error responses. The structure is same as that was in part 1. Date, time, formatter, then error, timestamp, body, request URI, status code, all these are the same one. Whatever errors we are going to provide, it is going to be stored. Here we are not customizing, we are creating this if there is no error provided, then we are giving a default message as customized error. Otherwise, whatever error we have provided will be populated in the error response. Okay. Now this is a Spring Factory. I didn't said it in the part 1. This is Spring Factory. We need to provide this global exception handler which we have created over here. That path you need to provide here, and this enable auto configuration also you need to provide in order to so that this exception handler utility will be able to read in that in whatever project you provide it to. Okay. Now let's test this exception handler utility. Now the same way the way I've created this version 2.0.0 branch, similarly for the integrate custom exception that we had in part 1, I've created this version 2.0.0, this repository. So I'll go to my code. I have already cloned it. Let me check out. Okay, it has been checked out to version 2.0.0. Let me expand. So here in the controller I have written all the possible cases. One is that custom exception which was there already in this which was already there in this part 1 video. So, and these are the new ones, like for example, I want to throw bad request exception, then I can do this way. I would want to throw data not found exception, that I can throw this way. I only need to send the error message. I have given this error message. You can give whatever error message you want to provide. This is the check I have given to just test, but otherwise you can test it in multiple, like whatever your business conditions or your business requirements are. The same way you can use this. Okay, let me start the application. Meanwhile, I need to let me show how I added the dependency. Starter and test dependency and Lombok is there. See, this has been here. Net learning exception handler utility 1.0.0. Okay, this is started. Let me go to the postman. First, I need to take the curl command. Yeah, here it is. Let me go to the postman, import and test. See, the data is success because we have provided success over here. Now let me provide fail, then it will throw custom exception. So custom exception is because I have provided here, right? See, random HTTP status with customized message. So if you want to send this 505, I want to send any HTTP status message, like any HTTP status that I want to send which is not present in the handler, I can customizedly send those HTTP status. HTTP version not supported, random HTTP status, whatever I want to provide. Now for example, I want to throw 400 bad request. So see, the 400 bad requests will look like this. This is the error message I have given, that's why it's coming. If I do not give any error, like whatever error message you provide will come over here. It's a post request, the post is coming, and request URI, status code, everything is coming. Similarly, 404, data not found, 500, bad gateway exception. So yeah, that's all. I think 503 also I have given. Okay, 503. See, service unavailable exception. This 503 service unavailable. So that's all, I think. Yeah. Always remember one thing which is very important. This Spring Factory is important. You need to provide it, and in the POM, whichever version, like the artifact, the group ID, artifact and version, whatever you have given here, that same you have to provide to that same you have to provide in the POM where you want to integrate this exception handler utility. See, the group ID, artifact ID and version is same. So, and once you do Maven clean install in the exception handler utility, now the project will be stored in your repository, a local repository, and you will be able to pick in whatever project you have added to. Thank you everyone.